Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gareth Soloway here at VerifiedInvesting.com, and holy cow, what a big move in the markets. The NASDAQ, the S&P having some of their biggest moves in the last year plus to the downside after Google and Tesla shocked Wall Street with their kind of not so good earnings. And this brings up the key, valuation. Mega cap tech was priced to perfection. If they can't deliver perfection, things are going down and going down in a major way. The charts were already telling us about this, folks. If we think about the charts, right? I was looking at charts, the patterns, the channels were breaking. We saw this type of thing going on over and over again on different charts like NVIDIA, the S&P, the NASDAQ chart, and we'll look at some of those right now. But again, guys, big stuff with earnings season here as we prepare for more earnings after the bell. All right, into the action we go here. Look at all that red in the heat map. Amazing. Apple down 3%, NVIDIA down almost 6%, Microsoft down 3.5%, Google's down 3+%. Again, major. In fact, Google's down about 5% on the day on those earnings. All right, look at the big cap red right here. You get a little bit more green. When you go into health technology, which is more like the healthcare stocks, you get a little bit of green there. That's a place that money's running for safety. Also, you see energy down here. Energy is another place. Oil's fractionally higher today. That's helping some money hide away in some of the energy plays like ExxonMobil. And even if we look at some of these other areas down here, utilities are also generally green. But those are places where money goes to hide when things get scary. All right, and speaking of scary, the VIX today surging, I think close to 17. 20 is the big killer right there. When you get above 20, that's when fear really starts to take over. And then once you get to 30, it's usually a buying opportunity. But ultimately, guys, fear is creeping up. We're seeing the VIX again spike, and the markets are showing us that fear kicking in here as we head towards the end of the day. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 500 points on the day. NASDAQ is trading down almost 600, folks, 3.2%. That's huge for the NASDAQ right here. S&P 500 down 2.5%. Oil, as I mentioned, creeping up 11 cents, so just basically holding steady. Gold is down slightly on the day. It was up earlier and then gave it back and came back in, and Bitcoin is basically flat on the day. We're going to talk about Bitcoin today because Bitcoin neither saw panic selling, but it also didn't see buying from money flow that was coming out of mega cap tech. Interesting kind of factor here on the Bitcoin chart. All right. Let's jump into our charts as the markets are just about to close. Take a look at the S&P 500, basically selling all day long. There was almost no bounces today. If you look, excuse me, we saw downside early, kind of a flat line here, and then more downside late. There was no major bounces. Usually markets, especially over the last 3, 6, 9 months, when you would get a sell-off, you would get a buy the dippers coming in and you'd get a big retrace. Even if you go lower, the buy the dippers would come in and push it back up. That did not happen today. Look at the tight range in this market today, just down, down, down pretty much all day long. So what is that telling us? Well, number one, volume is heavier today. So volume, maybe some buy the dippers are coming in, but the sellers from the institutional side are pounding it down and just selling right in. They're like, here, take it. You want to buy the dip? Here, take. And that, to me, tells me that, sure, we'll get bounces, but we're probably headed lower. All right, speaking of lower, let's go to the S&P 500 chart or the SPY chart. Look at this. Remember this channel, guys? I've walked you through this pattern formation, right? So we had this beautiful channel, and we talked about how you were making a bearish pattern right here, and then look at the drop today. A big drop on the S&P, breaking this channel. And channels, when they break, it's not a good thing. It essentially takes out the support line that's held the market in check going back to April. Notice again, right here, and right up here, we got a small bounce, but that's the thing. It lures you in thinking it's going to happen again. Upsloping channels, remember, I've talked about this with you guys. Upsloping channels, there's about a 70% chance it breaks to the downside. That's what's happening here. When you have a downsloping channel like this, right, the chances, there's a 70% chance you break to the upside. So anytime you see this, after you bounce a few times, you start getting very wary by the third or fourth hit of the channel that it could break forward. Remember the analogy, the door analogy. It's locked in front of you. You have to get through. You got to save your cat, your dog, whatever it is on the other side from the burning house. You ram into that door over and over again, ramming into it. Finally, you break it down. There you go. to the downside. Again, these type of thought kind of psychology or understanding the market psychology really helps investors understand what the high probability move will be. Okay, let's go to a couple other charts here. If we flip over to the NASDAQ 100, I do have a level on the NASDAQ 100. We are going to come into it probably either by Friday or if not early next week. 458 is a bounce zone. Notice I'm not saying a buy zone. Bounce zone is a little different to me. Bounce zone means you get a bounce maybe for a day, maybe for a few days, maybe even for a week, but probably it's a short-term bounce. Notice the trend line. We have a very keen trend line here and right to here. And then the idea is you'd bounce there. You also have this flat top right here. Those two trend lines coexist together around 458 on the QQQ. So that's chances are we come down into it, we get some sort of bounce, and then it could be definitely a tradable bounce, swing tradable bounce. But eventually my guess is as the economy slows more and more, we'll see that break to the downside. But again, definitely tradable, and that's what I'll be doing here at Verified Investing with all of our members that are in stocks and ETFs at Smart Money, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, a couple other things to go over here. Google today. Look at this. And again, this is a great chart to learn off of. So if we go here, what do we have? We have the trend line, 1, 2, and then here's your third break. There's your retrace right back there, and then the drop right there. That's picture perfect. Again, that's oftentimes what happens. In fact, that could happen to the S&P. We could see we just broke that. Remember that channel on the SPY? We broke below it. Maybe we retrace into it, but ultimately you expect a rollover afterwards to the downside and further downside. Tesla was another big one today, guys. This was not a good report yesterday. If we look at Tesla, it is coming down towards technical support at 210. There's a big gap fill right in here. There's also a Fibonacci retrace in this general area. Again, I don't know if that's a long-term low, probably not, but at least you might get a buying opportunity around 210 for a bounce, maybe back to 225 or somewhere in that vicinity. All right, couple things to go over. After the bell today, we have Chipotle earnings. So CMG. Now, CMG is kind of interesting here. In fact, the market's closed about 2 minutes ago. Earnings are not out yet, but CMG is very interesting because we have an upsloping channel, and we know that one broke, right? So here's your upsloping channel, classic upsloping channel right here. And then it's really, look at the fall that you had. Imagine if the S&P does this. Oof, that would be nasty. Now the key is this, just below 50 there's support, but there's also support down here and here and here. And at some point down in this range, if it dumps out on earnings, there likely would be some sort of bounce area down here. Now this would be the high risk level at $50 Pierce. I'm unlikely to pick it up there. I want to see it flush more. Now, maybe it only goes there, but again, I always err on the side of caution. I'd much rather be missing a trade than getting in a bad trade. Bad trades happen normally, guys. Just if you take 100 trades, 1,000 trades, 1,000,000 trades, there's going to be a certain percentage that don't go your way. It's just the nature of the beast. But you don't want to encourage that, essentially, right? So you want to kind of choose your high reward, low risk levels, probably in this lower range down here if it flushes on earnings. Now, if it bounces, where would you short it? That's a little trickier, right? You can look at some levels over here, right around 55. There's a little gap fill. I don't think I would do it there. It's not a big enough move considering this. Somewhere up here in the $60 range might be an interesting level. But let's see what those earnings are. I think they come out at 410 today, so I probably won't be still doing trading the close at that point. Ford, let's take a look. So far, nothing on Ford. I think Ford, again, comes out either at 405 or 410. But right now, again, the stock did get hit today, just like everything pretty much. And again, that was down. GM had hit it the other day on their earnings as well. ServiceNow, let's take a look. ServiceNow in the after hours, nothing going on yet. This is another pretty big company. Minimal price action there. IBM, looks like IBM does have their earnings out. Small drop on IBM here. Notice that it closed right around 184 and change, trading down about $2. That's not a big move at this point in time. All right, so again, those are a few of the earnings that are out. Let me just take a look at LVS, Las Vegas Sands. Nothing out yet on Las Vegas Sands as well. Let's go to Bitcoin. Bitcoin, guys. So this is an interesting one. If you watched the game plan this morning, I said, listen, we have to watch and see how in a big day of mega cap tech selling does Bitcoin perform? Does it rally up because money goes out? Because that's what we saw, right? Here you had Microsoft topping right when Bitcoin bottomed, and then they were inverse to each other. So today I was like, okay, well, are we going to see Bitcoin rally because big tech is selling, or is the fear of big cap tech selling going to drive Bitcoin down? The answer, neither. Bitcoin staying sideways. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that it's partially a store of safety, so it was encouraging some buyers, and it also means that there were some sellers that were kind of a little fearful about the dump in tech. And so those buyers and sellers were equaling out, and that's why when price doesn't move, it tells you there's an equal number of buyers and sellers. So it's somewhere in this gray area. It's not really a risk-on asset anymore, but it's also not really a risk-off asset. It's somewhere in this middle ground, which is okay. It's on its path to becoming that safety hedge, if you will. It just is going to take time, and we'll continue to follow it. All right, so Bitcoin, again, minimal movement right there. We did see Ethereum break a little bit lower today. Oil today, fractionally positive on the day. Again, should ultimately head towards 74, but nonetheless, it was an area of safety today. We saw Exxon, Chevron doing better than the rest of the market. If we look at gold today, gold and silver, minimal price action. Gold was up sizably early in the day. You can see a little tail up here if you can see close enough. But by the end of the day, gold has sold off. So again, gold not really performing. I think it's forming a bearish pattern here in the short term to at least dump out down here. If it goes here, we'll have to see. But ultimately, my longer term remains very, very bullish on the chart of gold. All right, lastly, natural gas, and then we'll go check in on some of these earnings again. And if we look at natural gas today, a little bit of a downside move, nothing too much, still holding major technical support. I still think there is a chance that you might get a bigger bounce, although again, if the market keeps selling, it might just be risk off from everywhere, including natural gas. But this would be your max upside target around the 250 zone on nat gas. All right, let's do one more check-in on some of these earnings plays here. We should see some out. Let's take a look at Chipotle here. So far, Chipotle upticking just a little bit. I don't see a whole lot there. Ooh, nasty sell-off on Ford, guys. Ford is dumping. Look at that drop on Ford. Ooh, that is actually a big move for Ford Motor Company. Again, not a good move there. Looking at levels, 1295 is a little support, but we're below that already, which takes us all the way down to 1235 to 1240. That would be your next level. So right now trading at 1275, 1235 to 1240 would be your next key level on Ford. So that's not a good report. So far, ServiceNow is not out. Las Vegas Sands dumping out as well. So again, Vegas maybe not so good here. As we're seeing some movement down, makes sense. Maybe there's less people willing to gamble away their money as their money is becoming scarcer and scarcer in a slowing economy. But again, nice little dip there on LVS. All right. I'm going to get back to the charts because I got to go trade a little bit here, guys. We're trading still in the office in the after hours. Tomorrow morning in the game plan, I'll go over all the levels for tomorrow during market hours. We'll see what's going on, but ultimately today was a tech wreck and a market wreck. Markets got crushed. You guys have a great one. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.